Hello, I'm Gordon Lang, editor of CameraLabs.com. I'd like to give you a brief video tour around the Sony DSLR A300. Here it is, the A300. This is the middle model in Sony's consumer digital SLR range at the time we made this video. It sits in between the entry-level A200 and the higher-end A350. Unlike the A350, the A300 is very strongly based on that entry-level A200 model. They share essentially the same body shape, control layout, and also the same built-in anti-shake system that works with any lens you attach. And I've got the A300 mounted here with the standard 18 to 70mm kit lens. Now the A300 actually has exactly the same sensor as the A200 and the same image processing engine too, so the image quality of these two models is essentially identical. However, the A300 has two very important differences. It features a live view system, and a very quick live view system at that, and also a vertically tilting monitor on the back that allows you to compose at unusual angles. And I'll be giving you a demonstration of both of those later on in the video. But right now let's take a closer look at the A300's controls. The A300's controls greatly resemble those on the A200. In the top left side of the body you've got the main mode dial, a chunky power switch, and a button on the side of the body that pops up the internal flash. And you'll notice here the shorter hinge distance means the flash doesn't pop up quite as high as many rival DSLRs. Moving to the top right side of the body you'll find the shutter release button, the finger dial, and nice big chunky buttons here for the ISO sensitivity and the drive mode. It's very easy to operate these when wearing gloves. Now the big difference between the A300 and the A200 is the inclusion of live view facilities on this model. And to activate them you simply flick this switch from OVF, that's optical viewfinder, to live view. It really is as quick and as simple as that. But because this is a mechanical switch, it's allowed Sony to perform quite a neat trick with the optical viewfinder. Now if we take a look at this, in order to prevent stray light from entering the optical viewfinder, there's a shutter curtain that closes. Now that's nothing particularly unusual, but the neat thing about the way Sony's implemented this system is that the curtain automatically closes when you switch this to live view mode. I'll show you that right now. So if I flick it to live view, you'll see that curtain's now closed in the viewfinder. Back to optical viewfinder and it opens again. Live view, OVF. So that's quite neat the way Sony's implemented that. Also new to the A300 over the A200 is this smart teleconverter button, and I'll be showing you how that works later on in the video. Moving down to the bottom right of the camera you'll find the switch that activates the internal stabilization system, Super Steady Shot. Turning to the side of the body, behind the flap here, you'll find two ports. The one at the top for remote control and the one at the bottom there for DC input. Turn the camera to the other side and you'll find behind this door the memory card slot. And like the A200 and the A350, this camera takes compact flash memory cards. You also notice here a tiny port in the top left corner. This is actually the combined USB and TV output. So if you want to actually connect a cable to this port, you'll need to have this door open, which is a little bit messy. Finally, underneath the camera we find a battery compartment. Open this up and you'll find exactly the same battery as the A200 and the A350. This is an infilithium battery pack that gives you exact feedback on how much charge is remaining. The 2.7-inch screen on the back of the A300 is one of the highlights of the camera. For starters, like earlier Alpha DSLRs, when you turn the camera on its side to shoot in the portrait orientation, the information turns with you to always remain upright. Now it's a shame it won't do that in live view mode, but it's nice to still have that facility when you're shooting with the optical viewfinder. Of course the icing on the cake though is the tilting monitor, which allows you to shoot at unusual angles. First of all you grab the top of the screen and tilt it forwards until it's pointing downwards. The screen won't tilt all the way down to shoot at very high angles, but it's still helpful when you're shooting over the heads of crowds. Then you grab the bottom of the screen and tilt it outwards until the screen is facing upwards. This allows you to use the camera very comfortably at low angles. The screen may not flip around sideways either to face the photographer in self-portraits or to fold back on itself for protection, but it's still a very useful facility to have. Live view on the A300 is quick and fuss-free. Just flick the switch at the top of the camera and you're good to go. And notice that when I do switch between the modes there's no noise or delay of traditional live view systems, and there's a full explanation of how Sony achieves this in our review at the CameraLabs website. Also notice that when I do switch to live view, the shutter closes in the optical viewfinder to prevent stray light from entering. Now let's take a closer look at live view, and you can tell it's live because I'm waving my hand in front of the lens right now. You'll also notice those familiar markings, the same ones you'd see if you were looking through the optical viewfinder, and that's because that's effectively what the live view sensor's doing, so you can't turn those markings off. However, it does mean you get quick autofocus. There you go, ready for action at exactly the same speed as if you were composing with the viewfinder, and that's the great benefit of the Sony system. It doesn't need to drop the mirror and flip it back up again to autofocus. Press the display button, you can overlay shooting information including the battery life in the top left corner. Press it again and you get a live histogram in the bottom left corner. That of course is showing the range of tones in the image. Now unfortunately you can't overlay any other graphics on the screen like an alignment grid because they'd interfere with those focusing marks which are already there, and as I mentioned earlier you can't turn them off. However, you can overlay some settings to change, like the sensitivity. If we switch into the drive mode you can also change that while still maintaining the live view. And here you can see that you can switch between a 2-second and a 10-second self timer, and here are also the various bracketing options. One of the live view features on the A300 is the teleconverter option. This actually magnifies the centre of the screen. Press it once, it magnifies by 1.4 times, press it again and it magnifies by 2 times. Now this is just magnifying the centre of the screen. It's acting like a digital zoom, so if you took the picture right now you'd be capturing it at a lower resolution. And unfortunately, due to the way Sony's implemented live view on the A300, you can't use this feature for manual focus assistance. However, one of the things you can do in live view is preview the white balance, and this is pretty useful. Let me show you how. I'm going through the different white balance options now until I get to the actual manual colour temperature, and you can see here that as I increase the colour temperature you can see the actual impact that will have on the image. Now this is really useful because it allows you to fine-tune that white balance and actually see what you're going to get on the screen before you take the picture. That's a really very useful feature to have in practice. Now let's exit the white balance menu and also exit the live view mode itself on the A300 to have a look at the normal recording screen. This is the same as you'll find in the A200. Press the display button and you can use smaller fonts to pack more information on the screen. And notice how the battery life in the bottom left corner is shown as an accurate percentage remaining. Press the menu button and you can go through these tab pages, and once again it's exactly the same as you'll find on the A200. Now let's go into playback mode. Here's a picture we took earlier. Press the display button, you can overlay some shooting information. Press it again, you can display some histograms on the right side. Press it once more and you'll get a slightly smaller view with a series of thumbnails along the top. The Sony Alpha A300 is certainly a feature-packed digital SLR. It has built-in image stabilization that works with any lens you attach. It has one of the fastest live view systems that we've ever tested on a DSLR, and also a vertically tilting monitor that actually makes that live view very useful for composing at unusual angles. So that makes the A300 a pretty powerful camera. But are you getting a sense of deja vu? Have you seen this camera before? Well, if you watched a lot of the Camera Labs videos, then you may well recognise some of the segments that you saw previously, and that's because the A300 is identical to the A350 apart from its sensor. The A300 has a 10.2 megapixel sensor and the A350 has a 14.2 megapixel sensor. Otherwise, both cameras are identical. Well, apart from continuous shooting speed, that is. The A350 is actually slightly slower, it shoots at 2.5 frames per second, whereas the A300 shoots slightly faster at 3 frames per second, and here's how that sounds. So the A300 may be the lower end model in the range, but it actually shoots faster than the high end one. But if you've decided that this Sony system is for you, that you've fallen in love with a quick live view system and the tilting monitor, the big question is which model should you go for? The A300, or spend a bit extra on the high resolution A350, albeit with the slower continuous shooting? Well, to find out the exact differences between these models, we took pictures of exactly the same scenes using the A300 and the A350, and for good measure also the Canon EOS 450D or Rebel XSI. So to see the exact differences in image quality between a 10, a 12 and a 14 megapixel DSLR, and whether it's worth going for that highest resolution model, then head on over to our full review at cameralabs.com. There you'll also find feature comparisons that will help you decide which one of these cameras is going to be best for you. So to find out if the A300 is the ideal digital SLR or whether you should maybe go for the higher end model, head on over to our full review. You'll find it at www.cameralabs.com.